Casting Resurrect on our normal Monday recordings of this here podcast because For Azeroth has returned to Mondays at noon-ish. We're 8 minutes late today. It's fine. Hey, everyone. I'm Garrett Weinzierl. She's Jocelyn Moffett, and we're back to talk more Warcraft. How you doing, Joss?
I'm pretty good. It's Monday, so I feel like it's totally fine to have an ish time.
An ish time?
An ish.
Yeah,
an ish time.
ish.
Yep.
It's okay. I've got like my now
Close
melted.
enough.
I've got my now melted iced coffee next to me. That I ravenously devoured this morning. So, if I just run away from the podcast mid-sentence, it's time for that, Monday morning coffee bathroom break.
Lovely.
Yep, always good. Always a good time. So anyway, before we get into the Warcraft thing, we have to thank some folks because there's a few of you now have gone over to our Kickstarter for Embrace the Spoilers and backed it, and we are getting closer and closer to our initial goal. So I just wanted to say thanks, because this is awesome. We tried this a while ago. We didn't give it very much lead time. Didn't end up working out. This time I feel like we've given ourselves probably too much lead time, but whatever the case is, it is actually working. It's starting to come together, getting close to that goal. So thanks, everyone, if you're supporting Joss and I bringing back another season of Embrace the Spoilers. And if you're interested in what the heck that is, bit.ly/Embrace the Spoilers. Go and check it out. We're going to be spoiling the next season of Game of Thrones and some other cool things.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, actually. I'm excited for Game of Thrones to come back. I feel like this time we waited so freaking long because we should have had it by... Like, we should be talking about the finale of Game of Thrones right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah. I'm ready.
I'm very much ready as well. House of Cards is fun. Not really doing it for me as much this season, though. And
yeah, there's something about when, like, the whole world's going crazy in real life that watching, like, political intrigue, like, it's starting to seem almost boring because, like, they can't keep up with real life, which is insane to me. So, yeah, I'm watching House of Cards, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, okay. We're actually watching, we're just finishing up last season, so we haven't started the new stuff.
Okay.
And, when they're just like, she doesn't have experience, she can't run, I'm like,
Oh, man. All right. Well, we're getting political here at the top of For Azeroth. But yeah, so I'm having the exact same reaction on top of they seem to have forgotten who the interesting characters are this season.
Yeah,
but
so I'm looking forward to Game of Thrones coming back because it's like, I feel like a lot of shows are kind of doing this where they're going down, but Game of Thrones is just like ramp. Like, we're getting to the end, things are happening, big battles. Oh, God, it's going to be so good.
Yeah,
Even just the trailer, it just has me going like, look at all the dragons.
I prefer my political intrigue with dragons and copious amounts of nudity.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how I like my political intrigue. So, religious scholars fighting with each other about whether they should dig too deep into forbidden knowledge or not. That's also fun, and what we'll be talking a little bit about today in the priest campaign lore segment, which is what we're covering today in our lore talk. But before we get to that, there's some Warcraft news, Jocelyn. We know some things. We know some facts about the future of this here MMO. First up is class mounts. What's going on? We've got an update on class mounts.
Yes. So if you guys have been paying attention, the Breaching the Tomb achievement, if you're all caught up, there is one more grayed out quote-unquote story beat that we have to finish off to finish Breaching the Tomb. And once we do that, we get our class mounts, which means the June 6th, which is tomorrow, is going to be the time when we can actually all go and get our class mounts, assuming that you've been keeping up with your Breaching the Tomb achievement. So I think 2 of my characters have been keeping up, so I should get my Paladin and my Hunter mounts tomorrow, which is good. Are you excited to get your class mount? Have you been keeping up with Breaching the Tomb?
No. To both.
No, you're not excited about your
to
Death
both.
Knight mount?
I'm just, it was really awesome at BlizzCon because, you know why? They announced it and they showed it and that was it. They did not tell us it was going to be a multi-month slog through the most boring content of the entire expansion.
Yeah, very, very true. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be easy enough for you to catch up, though. The only thing, at some point, there was like a complete... I think it was like 3 class hall missions in the Broken Shore, which those ones tend to be 8+ hour missions. So if you haven't done those yet, then I think that might be the thing that might hold you back. But otherwise, like, I mean, it's literally like kill 100 demons, kill 3 elites, find 10 treasure chests, which is the worst one of all of them, by the way. So
the treasure chest one?
Yeah, because all the treasure chests on the Broken Shore disappear, and there's like special spawns, but they work like mining nodes. So like one person touches it, and then you have a very, very short amount of time to actually go get it. So the number of times I've flown towards a treasure chest and then it's disappeared, oh my god.
Well,
it's so frustrating. Well, and they spawn like once every like 15 minutes or something like that.
So these the little tiny things, they pop up on your mini map, and there's some resources in there and shards and other stuff?
That's what I thought it was, but it's not. All of those disappear. So they're no longer on your map. You can't see them anymore. You're like instanced as far as treasure chests go. And then they had like a 15-minute spawn, and everyone can go for them. And
so those don't count towards this achievement that you're talking about?
They do not.
Oh,
no.
okay. I was about to say, I was like, I stumbled across...
There's like a special set of treasure chests.
That's what I was trying to clarify. I'm like, I stumbled across 4 of those damn things this morning. I don't even have flying. So...
I know, and because that's what I thought too. I was like, "Oh, this is going to be so easy," and then I got the quest, and then everything disappeared, and I was like, "What?"
Okay.
Like I did like 5 laps of the Broken Shore before I actually finally found one treasure chest.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like everything on the Broken Isle. Awful.
Yeah.
Just awful. So
but anyway, so it should be pretty easy for you to catch up if you haven't. The only thing I think is if you are looking to get your class mount tomorrow, then you might want to go in and double check and make sure that you get your order hall missions done, because that's going to be the thing that you can't kind of do instantly. But other than that, there's not too much that's coming. I don't even think you have to run any dungeons or anything. Like it's super, super easy. So yeah, that's coming tomorrow, which is kind of exciting because I think the warrior mount in particular looks really cool, and the shaman mount looks really cool. You actually get to ride like an elemental. So I get my horse and my flying disc. Shamans get an elemental.
Yeah, part of it is I mean, there's a lot. I think a lot of personal reasons why I'm not particularly excited. One, it's just another undead dragon, and I like the one from Ice Crown better anyway for me on the Death Knight. And 2 is getting there. It's just not that interesting to me. So, I think Shaman, in my opinion, just win. I would go with my second favorite is Rogue. They get a giant freaking raven. That's so cool.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, the Rogue one's cool too. I feel like there's like 3 or 4 of them that are really, really cool. Then there's a 3-ish that are kind of okay, and then there's some down at the bottom that are like, really?
I like the Paladin
the classes that I play.
I like the Paladin mount, although I wish there was. I wish it looked more Blood Knighty and less human Paladin-y.
Yeah, I think the priest one is pretty cool too, because the priests get like an owl, don't they?
It is an owl horse, owl lion.
Okay.
It has kind of a lion-like body with an owl head, and then it's griffin-y. It looks like two or 3 animals kind of just smushed together in a weird taxidermy office, but somehow it looks cool and epic because it's Warcraft, and that's what they do.
Yeah, so again, that's available tomorrow. Also this week, on Thursday, actually at 11 a.m. Pacific time, there's going to be another live Q&A, so I'm looking forward to that because I just kind of want some more answers on some of the pacing and when we can expect things, because we also got release dates for Tomb of Sargeras, including Raid Finder, and that goes all the way into August. So
yeah,
feels like it's being...
So that specifically is Raid Finder, though.
Yes, yeah, that is Raid Finder. So Normal and Heroic open up on June 20th, and then Mythic and Raid Finder, the first swing of it, open on June 27th. So we are going to basically have all kinds of difficulty, and I'm pretty sure it has been a 2-week release window for Raid Finder previously. It's just for some reason, I think it's because 7.2 felt a little bit drawn out, that now access to all the raids not being available until August just feels even more drawn out because of the state of the game right now. So I don't know. It makes me a little bit wary of if this is 7.2 and if it's not going to finish until August, and then, we've got 7.25 on top of that, when is 7.3 going to come? And I think it's going to be a lot further away than originally I thought it was going to be. So I'm just a little disappointed because up until now they seem to be really on point with like delivering content, and it was just like pow, 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 almost to the point that it was too fast, and then 7.2 hit and it's like they hit the snooze button. So I don't know. I was kind of hoping for 7.3 even like before BlizzCon, but I think that's a pipe dream.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, I still see this as it's all fine as long as they're bridging the gap to the expansion. Then it's a win because previously they haven't, and we're not going to know. I don't know, but I'm still hopeful as a result. Yes, this is being drawn out to a certain point, but I think we're just now getting to an iteration cycle that reminds me of previous expansions. Up until now, it has been fast, it has been furious, it has been apparently starring Vin Diesel. But and I think this is all. It's like I said, as long as it bridges the gap, as opposed to just doing a full stop. Because Jocelyn, I just looked it up. I don't know this off the top of my head. I'm not this kind of nerd. But to remind you, 6.2 dropped June of 2015, and then how long, Jocelyn, do you think it was until 7.0 dropped?
Right, because 6.2 was the end of Draenor, wasn't it?
It was straight up that was the last thing. That was the Fury of Hellfire, and we didn't have anything until the Legion pre-expansion event.
And the Legion pre-expansion event would have been like... Well, that was in the summer, because Legion...
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, so a
June
year?
2015 until July 2016, there was nothing added to World of Warcraft.
Yeah, that's a really long time.
Yes, yes. So just keep that in mind. Anytime something's like August, right now you're like, oh man, August for all of the Raid Finder wings seems long, and I'm not making fun of you. And I get it; it does seem long, especially where folks like you and I, who very much come to this game for raiding and story. 7.2 has been a failure. But you know what it isn't? It's not 13 months.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
and we still have
I mean,
7.3 on the horizon.
The timing and pacing could actually be kind of okay because, so how long did we have between Warlords of Draenor and Legion? Like start of expansion to start of expansion?
I don't
Warlords
actually know.
was 2014?
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
So 2014 to 2016. So 2016. So if we're talking 2018,
November 13th,
so we might have about a
2014.
year if we're on pace. We might have about a year left of Legion. So I wonder if we're going to get an expansion announcement at BlizzCon. I would think so.
I would think so as well. The timing seems right, especially if, as you said, I mean, the fourth wing of Raid Finder isn't going live until August 8th, and while it doesn't really bother me because I'll be raiding with you guys, that does kind of give us a look into the overall maybe timing of the game because, you know, as far as the grand majority of WoW players are concerned, that the Raid Finder, you know, is played by the vast majority. So August 8th is going to be kind of the last new thing for most players of World of Warcraft. It won't, you know, so
yeah, I feel like if we're kind of like looking at it expecting a next expansion kind of next summer, then we could go finish up Raid Finder in August, then have 7.25 sometime in like September, like late September-ish maybe. And then I wouldn't be surprised if they launched 7.3 kind of around BlizzCon and made it so normal and heroic were available and kind of let those teams play through, get the hype around Argus going, and then have, you know, like here's what happens post Argus and here's our next expansion announcement. I can see all that happening. And then having some sort of piece of content to bridge the gap back to Azeroth, because I very strongly, very, very strongly think that we're going to end up with some sort of Old Gods Azeroth-based expansion next, which means at some point we're going to have to travel back from Argus to Azeroth and kind of like, I feel like there's going to be some cool, like, whispery, like, pre-expansion event. And yeah, so I think that there's that. I think that could be pretty well paced, but still, I think there's going to be a bit of a lull, kind of, again, in the spring of next year, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there always is. It's just, I think the question is how long is the lull going to be? Because right now their time to beat is 13 months. I'm fairly confident that Blizzard can beat that. I'm hoping it's
I don't think that we're going to be raiding Argus for 13 months. And then on top of that too, Argus is not only a raid; it's going to be a whole new like area zone kind of thing. So hopefully there's going to be some actual story and things to do into 7.3, and it's not just another Broken Shore. I'm hoping for a Thunder Isle type event. That would make me very happy. So also just real quick, looking from the last wing of Nighthold was for Raid Finder was released March 7th. So it's going to be roughly 3 months from the last wing of Raid Finder of the previous raid opening up and the first week of the new raid, which will be Tomb of Sargeras. So if they keep on that, we could look at 7.3 maybe around November. But that you start to get into the holidays, and that makes me think maybe a 2018 release for the next patch, because December is usually a wash month for most Blizzard products. That's kind of true, but I feel like if they put out normal and heroic kind of like more in November, like just releasing another ring of Raid Finder, especially the later wings, like Wing 4 is just Kill Jaden, right? So yeah, I feel like I don't remember any huge issues when it came to releasing Raid Finder wings. I can't remember. Like, I know they've had problems releasing patches, they've had problems releasing raids, but I don't remember Raid Finder specifically ever having problems. So I feel like that is kind of lighter content for them to put out in December. Because obviously there's just the go live button that you push, the big red one that just says release Wing 4.
There's nothing else to it. Nothing else to it whatsoever.
That was not a button sound. I don't even know what that was.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm just glad we have a date. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to get me back in and actually start grinding my AP, because I'm going to be a slacker compared to everyone else on the raid team. So,
well, apparently I've heard that mythic difficulty of Tomb of Sargeras is tuned around everyone in the raid having concordance, which is your like super big new trait. It's like, so when you unlock your new 7.2 weapon traits, you've got like your 3 new things off to the side with the 1 new golden trait. And then you can go and place more AP in some of the traits that you had originally. Any of the traits that were like 3 of 3, you can put another point into all of those. And then once you've done all of that, there's like the big circle in the middle of those 4 new traits lights up. And that's like, I think 500 million dump. And that's your concordance trait.
Yeah, that was that came out of an interview with, I believe, Morgan Day. I'm looking at it right now on a recap on MMO Champion. That's exactly what you mentioned. Mythic just tuned around the power increase from players having the concordance trait.
Right.
They got on a discussion of, hey, no, raid is not tuned around specific legendary items. Get that out of your head. Is where that started.
Yeah, so it's tuned around concordance, which means I know on my main character, I am very, very close to getting mine. A couple of people in our raid already have it, but that's mythic difficulty, and we're going to be blowing through normal and then working on heroic. So right. I feel like if you have it, it's great, but if you don't, it's not going to like break the raid. So yeah, work on it, but don't worry if you don't have it.
Don't tell me that, Jocelyn. Just tell me to be better.
Sorry, am I going too easy on you?
Yeah, tell me to get good,
Garrett, goddammit.
Tell me to get good. Tell me if I do less damage than Hakito, I'll be kicked. But Hakito will not be kicked if he does less damage than I. Make it unfair, make it mean, make it grueling. It's the only way I'm going to...
I was going to say, the only way that you can do less damage than Hakito is by, not showing up. So we need you to actually show up so we can do a comparison.
Shots fired. Shots fired. Has he not returned after his vacation?
Oh no, Hakito's back. Although he's away again, but yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're just throwing shade.
Yeah.
You're throwing shade. Well, it's time to throw shadow.
I love Hakito.
It's time to throw shadow, Jocelyn, because we should move in and talk about our lore segment this week. So put on your priesthoods, get your favorite tier. What's my favorite priest tier? I think it's probably tier 6 out of Black Temple with the chained faces. It looks awesome.
Man. I don't know how you know all of these tiers of all of this like transmog and what looks good.
It's very specific tiers, and it's probably from Burning Crusade. Because that's the first time I started collecting tiers. I did not have alts at the time, though. I did not have a priest. So I just remember looking at them being like, God, that's so cool. Well, I wish Death Knights were in this game. And then next expansion, they came. We got them. It was fantastic. But yes, today we are continuing on with our lore segments covering the Order Hall campaigns, and we're going to be talking about the Priest campaign today, which is I've completed the Death Knight Order Hall campaign. I've completed the Paladin Order Hall campaign, and I have done just the opening sections of the Priest Order Hall campaign. It was my only other alt at the beginning of Legion that was kind of ready to rock at the level, good to go, could start Legion content. This is actually the expansion on a personal note where I had the least amount of characters ready to go at the beginning of an expansion. Probably says something about Warlords.
Well, it's funny too because there were I know how I got a lot of my characters up was doing the invasions in the like pre-launch stuff. So that's how I had the most characters I've ever had available to me, and that was partly because Draenor was awful, so I spent a lot of time PvPing and on alts. But then we had the pre-expansion event, and I was like, oh yes.
yeah. I have a couple Alliance tunes. I got my warrior maxed out via the invasions, as a matter of fact. I was really close, though. I played my warrior quite a bit in Warlords. And then I got a warlock from like level 1 to very close, but I didn't quite make it because at a certain point I was like, I can't squeeze any more out of this invasion. I'm just so bored. I can't do it anymore. Which is totally on me. That is not a dig at the game in any way, shape, or form. I was abusing the invasion system.
Yeah.
But
warlocks have never really appealed to me, but I think I ended up with something 6 or maybe 7 characters at 100 ready to go into this expansion. I've gotten 3 up to 110 now, and the others are kind of hovering in the like 101, 102 range. But yeah, warlocks never appealed to me. I don't know why.
I don't know if you've noticed, but I tend to gravitate towards angsty things. In Warcraft, I like dark, death, spooky, that kind of stuff.
Emo Garrett.
Emo, yeah. I was an emo kid in high school, So in Warcraft, I'm gonna play the things that wear the dark clothes with the chains and the skulls and the spikes and all that kind of stuff. But I also really like the opposite side of that, which is the light. I have a lot of interest in the Paladin lore and in the priest lore because, as believers in the shadow are fond of, the shadow cannot exist without the light, and there must be a balance there. So
that's actually, priests must really appeal to you because they very much do. Their whole order hall is just built around the whole idea of balance between light and shadow. So it's a cool concept, and it's really the only one that has those kind of two extremes. Most of the other classes are very much like one or the other.
Well, and throughout the history of Warcraft lore, priests have been like that, or at least there've been certain sects of priests in Warcraft that have been very anti-shadow, and shadow priests are in some circles are looked on as outcasts, kind of like warlocks are in some mage circles. But
some mage circles. By some mage circles, do you mean all the mage circles?
Yeah, they're not quite. It's funny that the priest group seems to have become a little more modernized at a quicker rate than priests, than mages, because very much the priest order hall campaign and their order hall, for crying out loud, is all about the balance between light and shadow. And yet mages are still sitting there in their high tower thinking they're better than warlocks. I blame Kel'Thuzad. I blame Kel'Thuzad. Even he was more of a necromancer, but still.
You ruined it for everyone?
He was one bad dude. Let's just put it that way. But Anyways, let's move into it. Let's talk about this. So the Priest Order Hall campaign gets started due to a secret meeting that is organized at Foul's Rest in Tirisfal Glades to bring priests together to face the threat of the Legion. But the question, of course, is who called the secret conclave? A great priest hero emerges and is greeted by Alonzus Foul, long thought dead. Foul had been raised as part of the Scourge, but he did break free, and he's remained in hiding ever since that happened. He then apologizes to us, the priest player, for the secrecy and reveals that he believes...
Whoops. I don't think I finished that sentence.
That's all right. I'm a slave to notes. Slave to notes. This is actually a good place, I think, to break and talk about who the heck Alonzus Foul is, because he's a very large player in old Warcraft lore in regards to not going back to like the creation of the Titan, all that crap, but old in terms of modern day Azeroth. He was the Archbishop of the Church of the Holy Light during the Second War, and he was actually the creator of the Paladins and the original Order of the Silver Hand, which we talked a lot about last week, obviously, because we talked about Paladins. And there's going to be a lot of crossover today, as we kind of hinted at last week, because these two, the Paladin and the Priest Order Hall campaigns, meet up a lot over the course of their quests. Anyway, Alonzus also was the figure that anointed Uther, who was his apprentice at the time, as the first Paladin, and armed the Order with their blessed weapons. Foul also presided over the trial of Tyrion Forgering, which I'm as Jocelyn notes in here, I'm sure we're going to cover on another episode. And he ended up dying.
Actually has a really, really interesting story, so I'm looking forward to covering him at some point.
yeah, he does. I think he needs to stay dead for a little while, to have some weight to his death, but I am a little disappointed that the resurrecting of him to be one of the Four Horsemen was unsuccessful, because I'm going to miss Tyrion. Foul ended up dying of unknown causes. He, however, was memorialized in Stormwind after he helped raise funds to rebuild the city. But more recently, after being raised from the dead, he worked with Moira Thorison in her fight against the Twilight's Hammer. So
he's kind of been like in the background, like just kind of helping and guiding from the shadows. But no one really knew that he was actually alive, and he's seems to almost be ashamed of the fact that he's undead. So
yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, think about his time period, what he did while he was alive, creating the Paladins. What was the worst thing that ever happened to the Paladin Order? It was the Scourge, which were undead, which, yes, are different from the Forsaken, but which, although he wouldn't be considered a Forsaken, he was raised as part of the Scourge, but got free. Does that make him like his own like special Forsaken?
Well, I mean, he's still he is of the Forsaken race. You don't necessarily have to live in Undercity and follow Sylvanas to be Forsaken.
Gotcha. Okay. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me that he's just kind of has a little bit of self-hatred because of what he is, because of what happened to his order after the Scourge kind of rolled through. But whatever the case, he's the reason that you as a priest player get your title of high priest and are now the leader, because we're all special snowflakes in Legion. All of us.
All of us have the characteristics to lead.
Exactly. There are apparently 1 million Death Lords, 1 million high priests, 1 million whatever unimportant title hunters get, because they really had to think of something to give hunters, because they've been operating as lone wolves for the entirety of Warcraft's existence. Anyway, so after you choose what weapon to go and recover, Prophet Velen takes the High Priest to Netherlight Temple, which exists within, if you remember from last week, you've been keeping notes, class, there'll be a quiz. It resides within the Twisting Nether. Netherlight Temple actually was originally a prison that was constructed by the Draenei for the Naru to contain the Void God Soraka, which is a Naru who had turned to the Void. So this Void, purple, dark Naru. Priests from all orders gathered to study the nature of the light and the Void to attempt to heal the Naru. The priests in the Conclave were able to bring Soraka the Light Eater back to the light with the aid of the powerful weapon wielded by the High Priest, transforming him back into the Naru Sarah. Is how
it's like Sarah, but like with really lots of A's.
It's like Sarah if Warcraft tried to spell it.
Yep.
Yeah. As in all Narus, there's a couple letters, an apostrophe, and a couple other letters. So there you are. Void God Sriracha. I like that, Civ. Thank you. Anyway, so at that point, it is no longer a prison, and it is made into a temple. The display of power shown by the High Priest during this cleansing ritual caused the others to rally to the cause, including Kalia Menethil and High Priestess Ishana. Kalia is blowing my mind. I didn't know Arthas had a sister until this very segment. Working through the notes today. Holy crap, she's the sister of Arthas. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so she's definitely mentioned in the Arthas novel.
Still haven't read it.
You haven't read it? Oh, no, I think, yeah.
This was brought up when we did an Arthas, Arthas lore segment, and I believe you and everyone that reacted on Twitter just kind of had their jaws dropped, like, Garrett hasn't read the Arthas novel, oh my god.
Yeah, so she's mentioned in the Arthas novel. She's also mentioned another time. I can't remember if it was one of the short story collections, but basically it's like her betrothal to Lord Prester, who is one of the Black Dragonflights. Lord Prester might have actually even been Deathwing. I can't remember now, and that's bad. But or no, maybe it was Deathwing's son. I can't remember. Anyways, it was one of the Black Dragonflight when Deathwing was still on Azeroth, and right before he went through the portal with the Black Dragon eggs. So. Yeah, this was... Damn, that's really going to bother me. Anyways, Lord Prester was a black dragon, posing as a human, influencing all of the kind of kingdom stuff, and he was betrothed to Kalia Menethil back when this was still, an actual kingdom and not all destroyed and stuff. And they were trying to overthrow, I believe, the kingdom up in Alterac, I think. That was the goal anyway. So basically weaken the humans.
Yeah. And of course when going through the notes today and being like, oh, Arthas had a sister. How did I not know this? I go and try and find more information about it. There is almost no information on the character of Kalia Menethil.
Yeah, and I was actually really disappointed because she basically just joins your cause as a champion and that's it. Like, she just becomes one of the dudes that you send out on missions, and she has no other story, because when you first see her in the Order Hall, it's like, oh my god, this is going to be huge, this is so cool, and then it doesn't go anywhere, and you're like, oh, that's lame.
We'll see. Maybe they're setting something up for later. Right, we keep, for me, it always comes back to the Lich King. At some point, the Lich King's going to do something, I don't know, maybe Callie will have a hand in that, I don't know, there's not really as much of a connection now that Arthas is no longer the Lich King, but still, maybe they're setting it up for something in the future. I guess you never know. We'll find out.
But the other thing that was actually I found kind of cool, because basically this whole transforming of the Naru back from being a Void Lord, it's the same sort of thing we talked about last week with the Paladin Order Hall, with the cleansing of the Doomguard Dreadlord guy, Lothraxian, I think. And we were saying, like, oh my god, this is so cool. There's beings that can be, like evil, void, shadow demons that can be transformed into these beings of light. Like, that's awesome. And then the priests go, oh yeah, we did that. Like, back when we were at level 101. Come on. And it's really, what's really interesting about this is how they actually do it differs based on which artifact weapon you choose. So it doesn't seem to have any sort of, like, canon way to cleanse a void being. If you had the dagger, then you, as a shadow priest, like, suck the power of the void out of the Naru, which fits with your weapon lore, because your weapon essentially just has a mind of its own and always wants to just be the most powerful. So it, like, attaches it's very much almost like the One Ring in Lord of the Rings, right? Like, it has a mind of its own, it's always seeking power, and as long as you are the thing giving it more power, it will be loyal to you. So you suck the power out, the void power out of the Naru, and restore it. If you are a holy priest, you, I think, banish the void, and if you're a discipline, or maybe it's the other way around. Holy priest, I think you bathe it in light, and kind of like burn away the void, and disciplined priests, I think, do some sort of cleansing thingy.
They probably bubble it and shield it from the void.
What?
They probably just bubble it and shield it from the void.
Just bubble it. But yeah, so it doesn't seem like there's any kind of like canon cleansing ritual or like a way to do it. But so I found that really, really interesting, because the more beings that we see kind of turn from shadow to light, I think the more the theory that we will be cleansing Sargeras kind of gets more and more weight the more things that we see kind of come back to the side of quote unquote good.
I still think it's too far gone. Too far gone.
I will hold out hope that we are going to fix him.
I want to kill him. I want to kill him. I want to kick him in his nuts.
You wouldn't be able to reach his nuts, Garrett. He's a titan.
I can fly on my dragon that I spent too much time grinding for.
All right. So, anyways, speaking of the void, after sending Kalia out to spread the word about the conclave and kind of setting everything up at the temple, the high priest is made aware of one shadow priest who seems to be going mad. Gilner Greymoss has been whispering to himself in the Sanctuary of the Void. So the Netherlight Temple is basically split in half. There is the Sanctuary of Light and Sanctuary of the Void, one on either side. So he's just kind of sitting in the back of the temple, whispering to himself about shadows and the end and, you know, all kind of like apocalypse kind of things. So Alonzus just completely dismisses the ramblings as a priest who reached too far into the void and went crazy, which apparently happens all the time. But Prophet Velen isn't too sure. He sends the high priest out to Asuna to bring back a couple of alchemists who will help induce a vision to find the truth. So Yalia Sage Whisper and Zabra Hex were attempting to aid the Faranar front lines against the demons when they were attacked by Murlocs. So, you know, those damn tricky Murlocs. So the high priest rescues them both and they return to Netherlight Temple. Yalia then sends the high priest into the Eye of Ashara to recover the Lens of the Tides, which is a powerful magical Naga artifact that allows others to see Velen's vision as he experiences it, which is, you know, the way that the player isn't just sitting there listening to Velen talk for a while. So they now have the alchemists that have the whatever they need, the potion, the mixture, the tincture, I don't know. Whatever they give Velen to induce the vision, you've got that. You've got the lens from the Eye of Ashara, and you are able to see Velen's vision. It shows the priest order will fall at the hands of the Dreadlord Balnazar unless the high priest can guide the order, allowing old enemies to become allies, the shadows must rise, and all must unite under the light. When the vision's complete, Prophet Velen returns with Oros to the Exodar to rest, and we all know how that ends.
Yes.
After hearing about the Dreadlord threat, Delius Moonfang offers her aid in translating demonic texts to help locate Balnazar before he can locate the temple.
And this is where, well, enemies become friends. So the champions have also figured out who among the enemies of the priesthood would be a likely ally, discovering that there are a few defectors within the Scarlet Onslaught, which, yay, we get to go back to Wrath of the Lich King. Okay, so if you're not familiar, the Scarlet Onslaught is a faction that splintered off of the Scarlet Crusade, who we talked a bit about during the Paladin lore and has come up multiple times anytime we've discussed any Paladin lore. They employed Shadow Priests and even Death Knights in an effort to overthrow Arthas and defeat anyone in their path. This is actually the same sect of the Scarlet Crusade that if you played a Death Knight, if you did the starting zone specifically, if you didn't just create it and then instantly boost it, that we went and just annihilated in New Avalon during the events of the DK starting area. Some members survived that by following the High General Abendis, following her on her ship to Northrend, but things didn't really go well there for them either. Many members began to speak out against the atrocities committed by the Onslaught after the fall of their leadership in Northrend during the events of Wrath of the Lich King, but they were jailed or executed as an example to others. But apparently one of those jailed folks is going to help us. So the High Priest travels to New Hearthglen, which was the new capital founded by Abendis, actually, upon landing in Northrend. It's in Dragonblight, if my memory serves.
Yes, it is.
Cool. So we go there to rescue one of these so-called heretics by the name of Mariella. And while escaping, Mariella begins to feel the light and hopes for redemption after all of the terrible acts that she committed in the name of the Scarlet Crusade. So Mariella and the High Priest go and rescue other defectors and make their way back to Netherlight Temple, where Mariella becomes a champion of the priest's cause to make up for her days within the Crusade, which I love all of this. This is very much my wheelhouse of interest.
This is the kind of the first part of the prophecy from Prophet Velen has now come to pass. So Alonzus thinks it's time to restore the cult of Forgotten Shadows. Their leader has fallen, and those who remain are in Duskwood, lingering near the grave of Natalie Celine. So she was the leader of the cult of Forgotten Shadows. Apparently, I don't know if this is like an alliance-only thing or something, but I had literally never heard of this before. But apparently, Natalie Celine and her story is the kind of thing that has, was canon and people knew about it, but I'd never heard of her before.
I'm unfamiliar as well.
Okay. But so the cult is made up mostly of forsaken shadow priests, but they follow Natalie's teachings of balance, that one cannot know the shadow without the light. She was also a wielder of, and I'm going to totally butcher this, Xalatath?
Yeah, Xalatath.
No, wait, yeah?
Xalatath.
Okay, it's the shadow priest weapon, anyways.
Yes, it's the best artifact for priests. It's the correct one to pick first because it's awesome and it whispers insanity to you.
It does. It's actually very similar to the Frost Death Knights, because as a shadow priest, when you're in certain places in the world that are particularly infused with old god type stuff, for instance, in the Emerald Nightmare, when you go up against Il'gynoth, your blade will actually whisper all kinds of stuff to you. Obviously, Il'gynoth himself is also whispering to you. Himself, herself, I don't know. Just a giant eyeball with tentacles.
We'll say itself. Itself.
All right.
I mean, the blade dates back to the time of the Black Empire, to the time of the old gods' basically conquest of the entire planet of Azeroth.
Yes. So she was a very, very powerful priest and followed the kind of void shadow path while also, again, balance, knowing the light at the same time. Basically, the whole concept was you had to know, or at least like be aware and kind of respect the light in order to not fall too far into the void. So it's still shadow priests, not disciplined priests, still shadow priests, but they were very much like, it's like the light kept them grounded while they explored the power of the shadow, which I think is so freaking cool.
Yeah, it's like this, it's like a lifeline while you're,
yes,
it's like the air going scuba diving. It's very, I love that nature of it.
So the cult reveals that their leader actually knew her death was coming, and so she took steps to protect herself by sending her spirit into the void. The spell to retrieve her spirit was written in her journal, which the high priest recovers from the Twilight Lord Urgrok. Yeah, some big evil guy.
It's more a sound effect than a name.
That actually makes perfect sense. So reading the spell at the Shadow Altar allows the High Priest to release the hold that the Void has over Natalie's spirit, which returns her to Azeroth, where she and her cult join the cause of the Conclave. She does have a warning for the High Priest, though, saying that there are many whispers in the Void, the kind that should have everyone worried. So this is, again, another kind of whispers from the void. I think there's a lot of points, both from the artifact weapon as well as, just things that are said by some of the Shadow Priests that I think 100% point us to an Old Gods expansion, because yes, the Shadow Priest and stuff that he was whispering in the Sanctuary of the Void that we talked about earlier could have had to do with the kind of attack on the priest order that we're going to get to in a minute, or it could be a warning for Azeroth kind of more broadly, which I think it is. I think that it was kind of read into as having to do exactly with the priest due to the vision that Velen saw. But there's nothing saying that that's the only doom and gloom apocalypse coming. So I think that there's a lot of little hints and stuff. So I think the fact that she kind of returns from the void and says, whoa, guys, there's some stuff going down. we don't have time to worry about it right now, but, you know, after this whole invasion of our temple thing is over, we should have a chat.
Yes.
So the High Priest returns to Netherlight Temple, and Lord Maxwell Tyrosus, which you guys will remember from the Paladin story last week, reveals that there's been a battle at Fellblaze Ingress and that many Paladin and Priest champions have been captured, Delis Moonfang among them. So the High Priest travels to Niskara. So this is kind of where our Paladin and Priest Order Hall campaigns come together. The High Priest travels to Niskara to free those that were captured, meets Epony Brightmane, who is a paladin that reveals that the demon jailers on Niskara have spoken of an upcoming invasion, but they didn't say where. So the High Priest goes around Niskara, discovering as much intelligence as he or she can, and seems to prove Valen's vision to be true, that an attack on Netherlight Temple is imminent. After saving the rest of the priests and paladins trapped on Niskara, including Delis and Erator, the High Priest returns to the temple. Alonza sends Delis and the High Priest to the Sanctum of Light to meet with Lady Liadrin, hoping that they will be granted an audience with the Paladin War Council. So the Sanctum of Light, again, is the Paladin Order Hall, not to be confused with the Sanctuary of Light, which is half of the Priest Order Hall.
Get some more clever naming conventions.
Yeah, the naming conventions of Paladins and Priests are very, very close. So I hope you guys aren't totally lost at this point. So the Paladins agree, obviously, to aid the priests in defending Netherlight Temple against Balnazar's attack, fulfilling the final part of the prophecy and uniting all who follow the light. As the attack becomes imminent, the High Priest locates Prophet Velen and Lord Tyrosus in Dalaran to tell them the attack has begun, and then everything plays out exactly the same way as in the Paladin campaign, which we went over last week, so I'm not going to go over all again. But
Balnazar dies.
No more
Balnazar dies, and there's a light-infused Dreadlord hanging out.
Yeah, exactly. So, all in all, I think there were some kind of cool little sections of the Priest campaign. It's probably my least favorite so far. And as much as I absolutely loved the idea of the Priest and Paladin campaigns kind of like playing off each other and, you know, ending in a big joint confrontation, after you've played through either the Paladin side or the Priest side, I think the other campaign then loses some of its weight. So if you only have one character, then I think that this campaign is really, really interesting. But I think if you're playing both a Paladin and a Priest, then it's going to get pretty old pretty fast because there is definitely a lot. Like, I mean, basically from the point where you travel to Niskara, you are now doing all the exact same stuff. So you're, you know, as a Paladin, you had to go to Niskara, you had to free everybody, you had to discover all the intelligence, like all of that was all the Paladin campaign as well. So there's just so much crossover that playing it two characters would be a little bit boring. But I think all of the shadow stuff in this campaign, the whole shadows must rise and the idea of pulling someone's spirit back from the void. And I think there's the Shadow Priest getting your artifact weapon in the first place is really cool. So I think that that's the most interesting because it's probably the thing that I've been least kind of exposed to as a Priest player. It's very much like light, and they don't talk about shadow too much in my experience. So what do you think, Garrett?
I really, personally, I really like this, but I don't disagree with you. Obviously, there is a lot of crossover, especially in the final act. It's as you said, from Niskara on, pretty much exactly the same. But I'm a big fan of Shadow Priest lore and the dichotomy between the light and the shadow, as I've kind of already mentioned. So I'm still really enjoying it. Like I said, I've only played the opening parts of this because then I started leveling for the third time through Legion, and I'm like, hey, I'm done. I'm done for now. I don't need to do this again. But I immediately fell in love with the Shadow Priest weapon that's whispering in your ear.
Yeah.
And it's extremely nerdy. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think this is Legion's greatest achievement is the campaign quest lines. The way that they're really able to go so hard into some of the geekiest crevices of Warcraft lore. It's everything I ever wanted. It's fan service directed directly at me to the point where I can direct it myself by choosing what classes I want to play to steep myself in the lore that I am the most interested in. I'm not a big Druid fan, even though Night Elves are one of my favorite things in Warcraft. In the history of Warcraft, Night Elves I find to be one of the most interesting races out there, but Druids are not my thing, so I just not going to go play a Druid.
Yeah.
But I can, as a big fan of the light and the shadow as it exists within the kind of holy orders on Azeroth, I can go play both a paladin and a priest, and even though the final act has crossover, have a very different experience leading up to that, and learn even more about these sections of lore that I find so darn just interesting to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that was maybe the part I was a little bit disappointed about, because I felt like the crossover portions, like I didn't learn anything new. I thought that maybe seeing it from the priest side of things, I would learn something new. Like there would be more interaction with Prophet Velen, or, you know, maybe the final battle would somehow play out a different way. Like, I don't know what I expected necessarily, but I kind of thought that it would just be that little bit different, that you'd get some little nuggets of priest info. But it felt like, because the cleansed Dreadlord actually ended up being a Paladin champion, and then same with Delis Moonfang moving over to the Paladin order, like it kind of felt like priests got the short end of the stick a little bit in this case. So yeah, like I think I was looking for them to get something, and then they didn't get anything, and I was kind of like, ah.
You bring a champion back from the void, and that champion gives you a teaser about what will very likely be the big threat of the next expansion, which Paladins don't get any of that. So I disagree.
True. That is true.
I'm on Team Priest here. I think what revelations you glean from the shadow portion of this campaign hall are infinitely more interesting than any of the unique portions of the Paladin campaign. Yeah, you get to keep a good Deathlord, which is supremely awesome. I'm not downplaying that at all. And again, I think a lot of this probably comes down to personal interest level. The whole shadow side of Warcraft, and specifically as it relates to the old gods and this Lovecraftian madness that comes with it, is something I'm very much drawn to. It's one of the things that keeps me playing, and is obviously directly involved with what I think is the greatest achievement in the history of Warcraft, which is the Ulduar raid. So I'm biased.
Fair enough. Well, Garrett, do we have any emails this week?
We got one, actually, while we were sitting here. We do have some. If we don't mention all the emails, and it should be probably, I think, obvious to some of the listeners out there. A lot of our emails kind of chilling that we haven't had on the show are suggestions for lore, which we love, and those are great. But we're not going to read that, because then we'll get to it eventually when we do that lore segment. Or worse, we'll end up sitting here for another 45 minutes talking about what that lore suggestion was without planning it. But we did get one as we were sitting here that was not a suggestion for lore. And folks, if you would like to send in an email, fazpodcast@gmail.com. That's fazpodcast@gmail.com is the place to do so. Jesse writes in and says, "Good day, Garrett and Joss. I wanted to say that I love your show only after discovering it recently. Going through 20 episodes over my shifts last week, listening to the talk of lore and various patches has stirred my itch to get back into WoW. How do you stir an itch?" That's a lot of episodes. I don't know, actually. Yeah, but I love that you binged this. That's really cool. Yeah, that's a lot of us in your ear holes. Yeah, it is. It reminds me of like when I first found the instance, because I think there were like 10 episodes. And like I listened to the most recent one. They were talking about the Gates of AQ opening, and then like over the next week, I just took all of it. I just blah. Well, I guess that's what Scott did in my ear. He was just like, blah! Yeah. Whatever the case is. However, this brings up a problem, Jesse says. I originally stopped playing in Legion because I had to switch jobs, and the schedule provided trouble to my ability to play. At that time, I was part of a guild with people I actually knew, though they have recently told me that a bunch of drama emerged and everyone quit the game. Stop sleeping with your guild. Stop sleeping with your raid leaders, people. Come on. I don't know if that's actually what happened, but I'm just assuming. This means that I would be going back in alone, and that is not a pleasing prospect. Do you guys have any advice on how to approach this, as I would love to play and get prepared for Argus, but was turned off with not having people I know? Your new fan, Jesse. Yeah, that's tough. That's always hard. I mean, WoW now is so much more approachable from a single player aspect than it ever has been. It's just been a constant ramp up. It's just a ramp without end in the favor of solo play since the very beginning of this game. And so if what you really want to do is just play WoW, if you want to exist within Azeroth, you want to kind of drink it all in, there's really nothing stopping you. If the biggest kind of mark against it is the lack of a social experience because your friends have stopped playing, go and look for a new guild. You can do that on your server. People are always looking for new guilds. Usually ones that are recruiting are pretty social and accepting of other people. If you're not looking to do one thing in the game super hardcore, i.e. raiding or PvP, I think it'll be very easy for you to find a group of people to give you that social experience and make new friends. Otherwise, consider. I've jumped servers many times, and I would say that's the next step to take. And I think obviously a bigger step to take because it's not cheap. You do have to pay for it, and especially if you're going to do something like a faction swap, which I've also done so many times. If I think about how much money I've spent, I get nauseous. But that would be the next step. Is maybe talk to some of your other friends who are still playing WoW, find out where they're playing, and go there. If you have been hanging around AMU for a while and you enjoy some of the other shows, and maybe you've made some friends with people with the community of this particular podcast, maybe consider coming to Earth and Rain. We don't have a guild there. We don't run the guild. We have nothing to do with it. We can't get you in. You're gonna have to apply like everyone else. But they do just as long as you're on your application, you're not just like let me the F in. You're gonna get in. But look up.
Let me the F in.
Look up the AIE, the guild, and consider coming on over here because it's the biggest guild in the world, and I'm sure you're gonna make some friends.
So there's there's AIE and Convert to Raid, CTR over on Airy Peak, which is Alliance. And those are kind of the two guilds that we kind of prop up as the ones that we play in and have friends in. And they're very casual, social kind of experiences. Convert to Raid obviously has a lot of raiding teams over there. So if raiding is your thing, then that might be the guild for you. They're basically like don't be a dick guilds. So, kind of like keep the swearing and politics to a minimum and everyone's going to be fine.
Pretty much.
But yeah, and I think it's just those are the guilds that we kind of always recommend to people if you're looking for a big kind of established community. But there's lots of ways to do it without actually going into either one of those guilds. I mean, you could also, like Aaron mentioned, server transfers. Look for a high population server. If you just want to kind of interact with lots of people, but you don't necessarily you aren't necessarily looking for that in a guild. If you just have a high population server, there's going to be tons of chatter going on in trade chat and stuff. And I mean, like general chat and stuff. I don't know. It's not really my thing because there tends to be a lot of jerks in there. I like my guild chat, but it just kind of depends on the experience that you want. And like Garrett said, it's very, very friendly to single players nowadays. There's lots of stuff to do. It's easy to group now with, Group Finder, LFR, all that kind of stuff. You can find groups for basically anything that you want to do. So yeah, there's lots of different ways to go about actually finding people to play with without actually being inside of a guild, if that's the kind of thing that you want to do. So lots of different options nowadays. And I mean, obviously, either Earthen Ring or Airy Peak, AIE or CTR would very much welcome you into the family. But yeah, you don't have to be in a guild.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I just brought that up because if that's the only thing that if it does bother you, if you want a social experience, that would be the ramp up journey I would take to finding your social experience. Just try finding a guild as it is. Talk to friends that are already playing, maybe move for them. And if none of that happens, we take on all comers.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you are new to AMove, then spend some time in the Discord, spend some time in the live chats when we're recording our shows. Like, not everybody is actually a part of AIE and CTR, and you might meet new friends and find a new guild that way too. So just try being active in communities where you are already going to be talking to like-minded people, and especially the for Azeroth community, because obviously we all play WoW. So if you just, check out the A-Move Discord, and you guys can hang out in there and meet some people and hopefully find a new guild that may or may not be AIE or CTR.
Indeed. So thanks for writing in. Again, fazpodcast@gmail.com. Listeners, if you'd like to send an email in. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Don't forget to subscribe. We're on iTunes, Google Play, youtube.com/amovetv if you're not already checking it out. You can catch us live Mondays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time right here on twitch.tv/amovetv. Go ahead and follow that channel if you're not doing that already. You can also find us live on just about any device you can think of, thanks to alphageekmedia.com. Jocelyn, where can folks find you when you're not fazzing?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. You can also find me right here on twitch.tv/amovetv every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern for my general gaming podcast called The Gamers In. We've been doing it for like ever now, so if you're into console games, if you're into, whatever the newest AAA title is, then please do come and check us out.
Badass. I'm on Twitter at GarrettArt, amove.tv for every other damn show I do. If you want something that has nothing to do with Warcraft, almost nothing to do with video games, I'm doing a twice a month podcast about cars called Mostly Car Stuff. Is
that with Octane?
Yes.
Nice.
We're talking about cars. We've been flirting with this idea for years. And finally he broke me down. He's just like, you got your first manual car. Let's do it while you're still bad and can talk about learning how to drive it. So that's what's happening there. If you want to hear from one host that has modified two Subaru WRXs and another host, me, who just bought their first stick and is awful at it, then check out Mostly Car Stuff. If you're not in the cars at all, it's probably not for you. But, so go check that out. We're going to record the second episode actually tonight. But if you want to hear our car history, that's over there on episode 1. Other than that, going to pimp the Kickstarter. Again, we are kickstarting, Jocelyn and I, our next season of Embrace the Spoilers, which will cover Game of Thrones Season 7. There are stretch goals to cover some of our most anticipated movies of the end of this here very summer. There's another stretch goal to make Jocelyn watch all 3 original Indiana Jones movies. We will do a spoiler episode about all 3 Indiana Jones movies and record 3 separate commentary tracks of those 3 original Indiana Jones movies. And another stretch goal to make it a live video stream where we can get in here and you guys can tell us why our opinions are so wrong live in a Twitch chat. So check that out, bit.ly/embrace the spoilers for Season 7 Game of Thrones and even more nerdy goodness. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for listening. If you like us on iTunes, drop us a 5-star review. Until next time, good luck, have fun, and don't go crazy looking too deep into the shadow.
By the holy light!
That's a paladin thing!
I know, but I can't think of a priest thing.